This is my persuasive speech, and my audience right here, and my brother is on camera. Today we'll be talking about minimum wage in the U.S. and the problem with it. Current minimum wage in the U.S. is around $7.25 in most states. The problem with this is in most states, people cannot afford things like groceries and bills that come up every month. So what most people do is try to take loans from the government, and sometimes that's not the best option or financially best option for them to survive, especially with big families or big households. In this upcoming video, it'll explain how minimum wage works in America and the problems with it.
And legally pay to their employees. Strangely enough, the first historic wage regulation example was the exact opposite of the minimum wage. It was actually a maximum wage ceiling back in 1349. The Black Plague of 1348 killed a significant percentage of medieval England's population. The supply of workers was therefore drastically reduced. Wages soared, and setting a maximum wage was what King Edward III decided to do. As of 1389, however, the trend was reversed by fixing wages to the price of food, in an attempt to help people earn a living wage. This marked the start of the minimum wage trend, if you will. Today, minimum wage laws exist in pretty much all developed countries. Critics tend to say that 1. These wage floors increase unemployment by making it unprofitable for companies to create certain low or unskilled labor jobs in the country in question, basically giving them an incentive to outsource. 2. A lot of companies will simply increase prices to keep up with wage regulations, transferring the cost to consumers. 3. After a financial crisis or another shock, companies cannot temporarily reduce wages to adapt and have to destroy jobs by firing employees instead. Advocates, however, believe that the minimum wage, 1, increases the standard of living among the poorest workers by making companies share more of their profits rather than hoard capital, thereby putting additional money in the pockets of people who are more likely to spend. 2, encourages people to pursue legal employment opportunities rather than black market alternatives. 3, gives companies an incentive to become more efficient so as to adapt.
With the minimum wage in the U.S., you do have states like Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi, which minimum wage is $7.25, while other states' minimum wage, like California, for example, just went up to $20 minimum wage. The first problem with this for companies and small businesses is when you raise it as high as California's to $20, most of the time these small businesses and companies cannot afford paying their employees $20 per hour. Secondly, the $7.25 minimum, for example, in these southern states, is not enough for households to provide for their families and their needs. So what do we do with these? We need to come in between the middle and decide a fair number for each state to have a universal minimum wage number that is, 1, affordable for companies to pay their employees, and make sure household income is important and able to sustain for each individual employee for their company. So, another problem with minimal wage is the lack of needs that they can buy each month. The first things they buy is bills and taxes, and most of them go on government regulated cards, which means they're only allowed to buy a certain amount of groceries for a certain amount of people in their house, which honestly does not even give them 3 meals a day to eat. A couple things we can do is, 1, look at the grocery store prices around America. Due to inflation, the prices of groceries has gone up almost 40% each year. What $160 worth of groceries was 4 years ago is about $270 worth today in today's economy. So how do we, as workers and employees of America, get it to where we can afford groceries and not have to worry about minimum wage as our jobs? One way is publicizing your opinion, publicizing the need for grocery prices to go down, also the need for minimum wage to go up. You can protest, you can sign a letter to your local district to request a minimum wage raise or a lower tax relief on things like your house tax, your state tax, or federal taxes. Another thing we can do is make sure that we, as the people, get fair rates at the grocery store, gas prices, retail. Companies get to decide their prices the majority of the time, and the prices are for where they can have much more financial successful numbers than what the prices should be. For example, a case of water, a 40 pack, costs about 25 cents total, but retail most of the time charges $4 to $5 depending on your state. Another good example is gas. Gas is more expensive than diesel to make, but diesel is more expensive in cost due to the environment environmental scientists wanting them to completely ban all gas vehicles, which means the price for gas and diesel is double or triple the amount of what it actually costs to make. If we lower these prices, it would help, one, minimum wage workers be able to provide for their families, and two, the ability for big name companies don't have to pay these workers at this certain rate and where they wouldn't be concerned. The last thing we can do is make sure everyone in America has the same minimal rate and make sure small businesses are able to afford it. This way, you don't have a certain number where people aren't getting paid weekly or just not getting paid because their business can't afford them. Thank you for your time. This is my persuasive speech about inflation in the economy.